The world watched in awe as Amara Wellington walked down the aisle, radiant and regal, her Vera Wang gown catching the light like a dream. Across from her stood Damien Cross, tech billionaire, media darling, and the man who promised to love her forever. Their Malibu cliffside wedding was a $5 million spectacle attended by the elite of Silicon Valley, a celebration of brilliance, Black excellence, and what many called the ultimate power union. Amara wasn't just a beauty, she was a force. A 28-year-old Stanford PhD in computer science, she held multiple patents in ethical AI and had revolutionized predictive algorithms in healthcare. Her success wasn't inherited. Raised by her grandfather after losing her parents, she climbed every rung with discipline and brilliance. She was the kind of woman who walked into a room and made CEOs sit up straighter. Damien had met his match, or so everyone believed. Their love story began at a tech conference in Austin. Two titans in their fields, their chemistry was instant and electrifying. What followed was 8 months of collaboration and romance, of dreaming big and loving bigger. Damien, though born into privilege, had built his own empire from scratch. Amara, skeptical at first, eventually believed in the vulnerability behind his calculated charm. He told her she was the only one who ever made him feel real. The proposal was grand. The Griffith Observatory lit up with stars spelling "Marry Me," a string quartet playing her favorite score, and a diamond that shimmered like the future they were building. When she said yes, the tech world erupted in celebration. The honeymoon in the Maldives was picture perfect. Private villas, champagne breakfasts, and long talks about their shared vision for the future. But even paradise had its shadows. Damien seemed distant, glued to his phone, brushing off her questions with sweet nothings. She told herself it was stress, adjustment, growing pains. She had no idea her fairy tale was already fracturing. In exactly 14 days, that dream would implode, and Amara Wellington, the woman the world had applauded as half of a perfect whole, would be forced to face betrayal, racism, humiliation, and heartbreak. But what no one saw coming was what she'd do next. She wouldn't fall, she'd rise. She would become a storm. Before Amara became a viral symbol of power reclaimed, she was already a woman who defied every stereotype ever pinned on her. Raised in Atlanta, Georgia by her grandfather, a retired steelworker with a sharp mind and a love for chess, Amara learned early what it meant to fight quietly and win loudly. Her mother had been a software engineer, her father a jazz musician, both killed in a car crash when she was 10. But instead of breaking, she became iron-willed. Her intellect set her apart in school. By 17, she was already at MIT. By 22, she had started publishing groundbreaking papers in AI, focusing not on profit, but on ethics and equity. Amara was never about just being impressive. She wanted impact. Her algorithms weren't just advanced. They were fair, clean, and powerful. Even giants like Meta and Amazon had tried to recruit her, but she refused to be anyone's tool. Damien Cross, on the other hand, was lightning wrapped in charm. He carried the air of someone who had never heard the word no and didn't need to. 35, CEO of Crosslink Inc., his company had revolutionized global communications and AI integration. He had presence. A room would still when he entered, and when he spoke, people listened or obeyed. That's why their meeting at the Austin Tech Conference was so potent. Damien wasn't used to being challenged, but Amara didn't flinch at his status. She called out a flaw in his speech during a Q&A, earning a room full of gasps and his full attention. He was intrigued. She was unfazed. For months, their connection blossomed. Damien provided resources, introductions, media attention. Amara brought vision, integrity, and disruptive genius. They weren't equals on paper. Amara was still climbing. Damien had already peaked, but in ambition and brilliance, they matched. Still, while Damien admired Amara's mind, he couldn't help but see the optics. She was black, powerful, respected. She made him look progressive and futuristic. He would later claim he loved her, but from the start, part of him saw her as a symbol, not a soul. Amara, though cautious, had let herself believe. She saw past his empire and saw the man who talked about building clinics in Ghana, the one who cried watching a documentary on injustice. She believed they were building something real, not just in business, but in life. But beneath Damien's love was control, and beneath Amara's trust was a storm waiting to rise. The Maldives honeymoon should have been paradise, a private villa perched over crystal-clear waters, candlelit dinners, slow mornings wrapped in linen sheets. But Amara sensed something. Damien was present but distant. He smiled, but his eyes were elsewhere. Every morning he'd slip away to take calls. Urgent business, he claimed. But when Amara walked in on one, he ended it so quickly, so awkwardly, she felt a sting of intuition. Once she saw a message light up his screen. "Miss you already." She asked him about it. He smiled, kissed her forehead, and said, "It's just a client being dramatic. Don't worry, beautiful. This is our time." Still, she worried. Her instincts, always sharp, told her something was wrong. But she fought it back, told herself it was wedding stress, told herself this was Damien, the man who cried during their vows. When she suggested a day off the grid, no phones, no laptops, he agreed, but spent half the day catching up on emails. Amara tried to shrug it off. After all, Damien was a billionaire. He had a company to run. But love, real love, requires presence. She had given hers fully, and slowly she began to notice he hadn't. Late at night, while he slept soundly, she lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering why her dream felt a little like a lie. And she had no idea that lie was about to become her living nightmare. Amara returned home early from Tokyo, glowing with pride over a massive AI deal she had just closed. She couldn't wait to surprise Damien. Instead, she walked in on him with Clarissa von Habsburg, his ex, in their bed. The shock shattered her. Clarissa smirked. Damien barely looked apologetic. "This was always temporary, Amara," he said, calm and cold. "You were an experiment, a brilliant strategic PR move." Amara's world crumbled. The man who vowed forever had used her. For image, for gain, for show. 3 days later, his lawyer handed her divorce papers. But Damien didn't know Amara. Not really. And he was about to learn what happens when you betray a woman who built herself from nothing. 3 days. That's how long Amara stayed in their Malibu mansion, surrounded by unopened wedding gifts and the scent of betrayal soaked into every pillow. The headlines mocked her. "Billionaire dumps tech prodigy." Memes surfaced. Late-night shows laughed. The world had turned her heartbreak into entertainment. She didn't eat, barely slept. Her phone buzzed constantly. Media inquiries, fake sympathies, cruel gossip. But on the fourth morning, a call cut through the noise. Her grandfather, the man who'd raised her with quiet strength. "Baby girl," he said gently, "you crying over a fool?" She broke. "I trusted him, Grandpa. They're all laughing." His voice turned firm. "Let them laugh. That man didn't break you. He exposed you to your next chapter. Now get up. Show them what a Wellington woman is made of." That moment lit something deep inside her. She stood up, walked into her office, and stared at her work, her research, her designs, her power. Then she saw the prenup. Tucked within legal jargon, one clause changed everything. Any intellectual property created during the marriage belonged solely to the creator. Amara smiled for the first time in days. He'd taken her heart, but she still held the crown. Amara read the prenup again, slower this time, her fingers trembling, not from pain, but power. Page 12, line 4. All intellectual property created during the marriage shall remain the sole ownership of the original creator. Damien had overlooked it, or maybe underestimated her. Either way, it was his fatal mistake. Over the past year, Amara had poured her soul into a revolutionary AI system, one that Damien's company had recently launched as its own. She'd trusted him, shared everything, her algorithms, her prototypes, her vision. Now, legally, all of it still belonged to her. She pulled up old emails, voice memos, collaborative notes, all time-stamped, all traceable. Her lab notebooks were scanned, her contributions documented. Every innovation that powered Damien's latest billion-dollar expansion had her signature coded deep inside. He didn't just betray her emotionally, he stole from her intellectually. But Amara was a scientist. She believed in facts, evidence, precision, and now she had enough to destroy him, not with gossip or drama, but with truth, with law. She called her attorney. "I want the best intellectual property lawyer in the country," she said. The storm Damien sparked wasn't just personal anymore. It was business, and Amara was coming for everything he built with her brilliance. The legal wheels turned quickly once Amara's lawyer stepped in. She didn't want hush money. She wanted justice. While Damien flaunted his new freedom with Clarissa, oblivious to what was brewing, Amara quietly gathered her arsenal: documents, prototypes, and video recordings of brainstorming sessions where she'd led every breakthrough. It was irrefutable, but revenge wasn't her end goal. Rebirth was. With her portion of the settlement and her remaining savings, she leased a small co-working space in downtown San Francisco. It wasn't glamorous, peeling paint, flickering lights, but to her it was sacred ground, the birthplace of her next empire. She called it Phoenix Technologies. Her team, misfits, outcasts, underestimated geniuses, people like her. A trans woman engineer passed over for years, a disabled black coder with unmatched security instincts, a Latina UX designer whose ideas had been stolen too many times. They worked day and night, fueled by passion, fueled by the fire of every door ever slammed in their faces. Within 6 months, they launched Helios, an AI-powered cybersecurity system that didn't just detect attacks, it anticipated them. Built on ethical data, transparent, fast, revolutionary. The same week, the Department of Defense signed a $50 million contract. Damien never saw it coming. But Amara had only just begun. News of Phoenix Technologies' explosive rise spread like wildfire. Forbes, TechCrunch, even the Wall Street Journal couldn't get enough. Amara wasn't just back. She was leading a new wave of ethical tech innovation. Investors poured in. Clients defected from Crosslink to Phoenix in droves. And Damien? He started bleeding. His board grew restless. Questions were asked. How did a startup outmaneuver their billion-dollar firm? Why were Amara's patents tied to their core products? Lawsuits followed, led by Amara's airtight evidence. The media turned on him just as quickly as they once praised him. Clarissa vanished from the public eye. Damien tried to fight back: press releases, smear campaigns, even a desperate settlement offer. But it was too late. Every dirty trick only highlighted Amara's integrity. And when the court ruled in her favor, awarding her full ownership of the technologies Crosslink had built its last two products on. Shares plummeted. Damien was forced to step down as CEO. The man who once saw Amara as a stepping stone was now a shadow of his former self. And Amara? She didn't celebrate, not publicly. She simply raised her head, walked back into her office, and got back to work. She hadn't destroyed him. She'd simply outgrown him. The tech world had crowned its new queen, and this time, no one questioned if she belonged. Amara graced the covers of Forbes, Time, and Wired, not as Damien's ex, but as a visionary in her own right. Headlines no longer read scorned genius, but the architect of ethical AI. She was invited to speak at Davos, honored at the United Nations, and even offered a faculty position at Stanford, one she politely declined. Instead, she focused on building. Phoenix Technologies expanded globally, hiring women, queer folks, and people of color from underserved communities. Amara created mentorship pipelines for girls in STEM, funded scholarships, and launched a tech incubator named after her grandfather. When asked in an interview what drove her, she said simply, "Pain taught me to rebuild, not retreat. I just stopped asking for a seat and built the table instead." Damien, now bankrupt and forgotten, attempted one final public apology. A letter, open, dramatic, full of regret. Amara never responded. She didn't need to. Her silence was louder than any revenge. The world had watched her fall. But now they stood in awe, watching her rise higher than any of them imagined. The storm had passed, and she was the thunder that remained. Amara stood at the rooftop of Phoenix's new headquarters, overlooking the city that once watched her break. Now it pulsed with her legacy. What began as betrayal ended in brilliance. She didn't just survive, she reshaped the tech world on her terms. No press release, no grand finale, just a quiet moment, a deep breath, and the weight of knowing she'd turned her pain into power. She never needed to prove herself to anyone, especially not him. Because in the end, the empire she built wasn't revenge, it was remembrance of who she always was, unbreakable, unbought, unstoppable.